Hi, I'm Kath. Welcome to Kath's Crisis Cafe. This is Ramona. She's my puppy, in the sense that she is, a very senior dog, who I still call a puppy. I really enjoy consuming lots of different content on YouTube. Recently, I've gotten really into Booktube. I also really like watching makers, so people making miniatures, making machines, making art. For some reason, Booktube was the place where I thought, I don't just want to consume this content, I want to participate. And I think the thing that pushed me over the edge was that I can be pretty shy and I can also be pretty awkward. I find it really hard to make a first comment or reach out to people and kind of make the first move to discuss something. And I thought, instead of trying to do that and failing miserably, or coming off too eager and scaring people off, which I think I sometimes do, I would share my thoughts and add my voice in this way. And if anybody wants to interact with me, they are absolutely free to do so. Leave me comments and we'll see how I do about having conversations with you. I tend to have a very unique point of view on things. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble finding what my thoughts even are on a certain thing. But when I do have a thought, it tends to be a little bit unusual, and I'd love to be able to share that and to add, my perspective. I also tend to be completely unable to hide my true feelings about anything. So, rest assured that I won't be fluffing anything up or adding to a debate just to cause drama. I tend to be 100% myself at all times, sometimes to my great disappointment and detriment. I would love if this, this process, creating this channel, starting this process, led to me, feeling a part of a community, maybe making a friend or two, feeling like I'm engaging with people, with the community in some way. I have very low expectations, but I do have a lot of vague hopes. It's an exercise for your empathy. And it's a way to kind of experience things that you would never in a million years experience. It's a way to really connect with your humanity in that way. I also love the sort of very intimate and simultaneously very public process of reading. So the fact that you're picking up this book that a person wrote, they kind of took it out from inside them and put it on a page, and then you're reading it off the page, and it's affecting you in a very personal way. You relate to it based on who you are and what you're bringing to that book. You're picturing things in a certain way, for example, and then somebody else might be picturing something completely different or experiencing the book in a completely different way, and I love that. I'd be lying if I didn't say Ramona. Ramona Quimby is my bitch. I absolutely adore her, and I related to her so instantly and so completely as a child, which is very strange because I'm an only child. And a lot of who I am comes from being an only child, and a lot of who Ramona is comes from being a little sister to Beezus. So in that way, we're actually quite different. What I really related in myself to Ramona was our complete inability to be anybody but who we were, and the way that she experienced the world around her, the way that she saw grown-ups, the way that she saw other kids. Tell me what the scariest book is that you've ever read, because I just really want to know. I am always adding to my to-read list. It's not even March yet, and my TBR list in my journal is completely out of date. There are things on there that I don't even have an interest in anymore, and there's probably just as many things as are on there that I've added to my TBR since. I'm constantly looking for the next thing, the scariest thing, the most exciting, strangest thing. So please, what's the strangest book you've ever read, and what's the scariest book you've ever read? I am not the tidiest person. If you look behind me right now, you will see that. I didn't move into my study to film this because there's like an exercise bike in the middle of it. I'm just an incredibly messy person, and I'm learning to accept that. But it's hard, and it's especially hard when I think about sharing that part of me on film. I've been putting this off because I wanted to clean up, you know, have a little tidy space. I'm a Virgo, so this is driving me crazy. And just in my soul, I am a tidy person. In my soul, I'm a minimalist, and I, you know, live a very Zen existence. And unfortunately, the physical translation of that in my space is not great. And that's due to a lot of factors. It's due to my anxiety. It's due to my undiagnosed ADHD and potentially autism. It's pretty chaotic here, and that is a huge challenge because I am dealing with a lot of shame about that. I need to get past it, and I think the best way to get past it is to do this regardless. So things are never going to be as perfect as I want them to. I acknowledge that I'm working towards, you know, a tidier life, a cleaner life. I'm always working towards that. And I have had moments in my life where things felt, you know, perfect. They felt like, oh my God, I'm never going to let it get that bad again. And I have had moments in my life where things felt like the worst they could ever be in terms of tidiness. And, you know, that same person was present in both of those moments, and that was me. And so, you know, this is a process. I'm learning that. I'm learning that this is basically the struggle of my life. And I don't want to like have it stop me from participating in life and doing things. So here I am, but it is kind of hard to share that part of me with you. I was 4-ish, I think, when I started reading. I was read to from like infancy, so I don't know when I started participating in the reading. I might have been 3 or 4. You know, you just kind of start contributing to the nightly reading, and I do remember that I never slept as a child. So these bags, they're not grown-up bags. These are bags that I've had, eye bags that I've had with me from childhood. They actually look better now than they did when I was a child, because when I was a kid, they were like blue. Now they're just puffy. I had some concerned teachers actually when I was little, because I had like these big blue bags under my eyes, and I had these really blown out pupils, and they thought I wasn't sleeping or that I was abusing like cough syrup or something. And they would call my parents in every year. And you know what? They were right that I wasn't sleeping, because I never wanted to be asleep. I never wanted to miss out on anything. And my main thing that I did while everybody else in my house was asleep, I'd like lie awake until my parents went to bed, and I would wait until I knew that they were asleep, and then I'd sneak out of bed and I'd crawl to the other end of my room, and I'd like build a pile of books, just kind of whatever I felt like reading that night. And I'd have like a, you know, like a foot tall pile of books, and I would bring that to the side of my bed and turn my little light on, my little bedside light, and then I would just like sit up in my bed and read through the pile for hours. And I can't do that anymore. I'm a really sleepy person now, unfortunately. But that's, you know, those are my first memories of reading, and that was through all of elementary school. The first grown-up books I read would have been probably Stephen King. I remember before I actually read them myself, I had my dad kind of summarize the ones that he was reading for me. And I definitely made my way through Carrie as a preteen, because that was my favorite movie from really early on, from childhood. And still is probably like one of my top 3 movies. And I also Remember reading Cycle of the Werewolf a lot because my dad had this wonderful copy that had 12 illustrations in it, one for each month of the year. And the illustrations were fantastically bloody and I loved them. I do remember that the first book, the first Stephen King book that I read that, I read when it came out and I actually snatched it and read it before either of my parents had the chance to read it, was Insomnia, which is a little bit weird because, it's about like old people and I was a kid. But I was just so into it. And I think most of that was the excitement of being able to read a new Stephen King book at that moment. I still mostly read in bed. I guess that's kind of, left over from when I was a kid and I was reading all night. I can't read all night now, but I always read at bedtime, as well as kind of sneaking off to my bed, if I feel like reading in the middle of the day. Lately I've been reading sort of equally on paper and on Kindle or on my iPad if I'm reading a library book, which is really nice actually, because if I'm reading on Kindle or iPad, I can turn the light off and read in the dark. Scary is kind of, I know it can be really varied for different people, but for me, the more disturbing the better, the scarier the better. I don't have a lot of triggers. I can pretty much stomach almost anything. And I'm fascinated to do so. So, if you have any, disturbing, recommendations, please leave them. I would really appreciate that. I also really love poetry. I actually went to university and studied creative writing, and in my year almost everybody specialized in poetry. And I love poetry. I write poetry. I still edit poetry on occasion, sometimes just for friends, sometimes for money. And it's a huge part of my life. But I also feel like the publishing side of poetry is eluding me, because, everything that I know, I sort of know from school. So even then, what I was reading was kind of old. And it was a little bit, skewed towards classics or towards, maybe publications that were very successful at the time, maybe award winners and things like that. So I'm not 100% confident in my knowledge of the current poetry scene. I'd love to know more, and I think I'm going to get to know more as I kind of, check out newer books, newer releases, maybe things that have come out in the intervening years since I graduated school. I would love to catch up and make my poetry knowledge more current. I also like thrillers, but I can be very picky about thrillers. I have very little patience for the, drunk woman doesn't remember what happened to trope. I find it completely unbelievable and a little offensive, actually a lot offensive. So please don't recommend anything to me where a woman gets drunk and doesn't remember killing someone, witnessing a murder, being attacked, any of those things, please. I actually rage quit out of a book club because we read too many of those in a row and I got very upset and left. I also really like some nonfiction books. I'm interested in film and TV and kind of the, analysis and criticism of film and TV. So any, books of essays on certain TV shows that I'm into, or really critical analysis of horror films. One of my textbooks from film school, which I attended before I switched my major to creative writing, was on gender and horror, and it's still one of the best books I've ever read, and that's a textbook. So that's me. Please, don't be afraid to like, subscribe, and participate. I really appreciate it. Thanks.